regular agenda items?
No, I do not think there is. Just give me 1 second. I'll check the agenda. No, next we have the workshop meeting that Olympus would like to join us with.
Okay. Who's representing Olympus?
Hi, my name's Blaine Lucas. I'm outside counsel for Olympus, and we'll be emceeing a little bit our witnesses and presentation for tonight.
Okay, would you like to start?
Sure. As the Planning Commission is aware, Olympus has had pending for some time now land development and conditional use applications for both its proposed Dionysus and Leto pads. Goes back to 2019. There were Planning Commission meetings in late 2019 and a presentation made, I believe, in February 2020 that got into a lot of detail for the two proposals. Obviously, there have been a lot of intervening events since then, but we would like to kind of bring everybody up to speed and reorient the Planning Commission and the Township generally as to where things stand. Earlier this year, the Planning Commission compiled a list of, I believe, 31 questions dealing with a variety of issues, a lot on traffic, a lot on noise, that asked Olympus to respond to. Last week, Olympus made a submission, I believe it was on the 14th, and then a supplemental one on the 16th, answering as best we can a lot of those questions that were raised and attaching a number of documents, including some lease documents, some updated correspondence from the county with respect to Middle Road extension, an updated drawing as it relates to the access point at Dionysus, updated sound impact assessments for both sites, and a traffic impact study prepared by Stahl Schaefer. Tonight, we have a couple folks that we'd like to give you a little bit of an update. Actually, the first one is more of a reorientation. Joe Blickendorfer from Michael Baker, given it's been over a year now, just kind of give a general 10,000-foot overview of where the sites are located. Then we'll have Melissa Southern from Stahl Schaefer Engineering summarize the findings of the traffic impact study that was requested. And then our operations vice president, Manny Johnson, will give an update on, Olympus's efforts to be able to procure water for the site, other than through a couple other Olympus folks are also on this Zoom meeting right now in case questions come up. The one person who's not here tonight is our acoustical consultant, Tage Rosendahl, with acoustical control. He just was not available and had a conflict tonight. So we expect there probably will be some questions on the updated studies and the parts of the response letter that dealt with the sound questions that were raised by the Planning Commission. And Mr. Rosendahl will be available, presumably, if we're going to be on the agenda for your May meeting. Yeah, we'll make him available then. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe Blickendorfer from Michael Baker, just to provide a 2-3 minute update not even an update, really just an overview of where these sites are. Joe, I see your face on the screen now, and Mr. Payne, can you allow Joe to share his screens?
Yes, screen sharing is enabled.
Thank you. Again, my name is Joe Blickendorfer. I work with Michael Baker International. We were hired to be responsible for the site design and permitting for both of these sites. So as Blaine said, this is really just a kind of a reintroduction given the amount of time that's lapsed since we were last in front of you. So with that, I do have 3 drawings that I would like to share here. So the first one is just a high level overview here of the township. Everyone see my screen okay before I continue? Very good. Very good. So again, we're here to talk about the Dionysus and Leto well pads. They're both located on the western half of the township. about a mile apart. The main access for both of these sites will be on State Route 910, Gibsonia Road. Just to kind of reorient yourself a bit, Crossroads Motorsports kind of lies in this area right here. Now, the Dionysus pads located about half a mile north on Middle Road Extension, while the Leto pads about 1.3 miles north on Oak Road. The Dionysus pads located at the back end of an existing agricultural field, while the Leto pads located in a grass field. And again, just to orient yourself, this is the Dollar General store there on Oak Road. So as we move in a little bit into each of the sites, this is the Dionysus pad. Again, we're coming off of Middle Road Extension. The driveway has been designed and permitted in accordance with PennDOT Marcellus well pad requirements, including paving 50 feet of the entrance. The gravel and pad surface will be, or the access road and pad surface will be gravel. This pad lies in two watersheds. We have Deer Creek watershed to the north, to the west, and we have Dawson's Creek watershed to the east, to the north. Both of these sites, this site and the Leto site, are both, the construction and stormwater is controlled by a PADEP ESCGP permit. That permit controls basically the site construction and stormwater runoff that would occur during and post-construction. The permit for this site was approved on October 16th, 2019. And to meet the intent of those permits, the stormwater controls proposed for this site are 2 wet ponds and an infiltration basin. The thing to point out here is that these stormwater controls are only meant and will only receive rainwater runoff from the site. Complicating the design a bit is the watershed, Dawson Creek watershed that we have to the northeast. It has a 75% reduction in stormwater runoff, according to the county's Act 167 plan. So we'll be releasing less water from the site in the post-construction scenario than we will under current day. Moving on to the Leto well pad. Again, we're coming off of Oak Road. We got the Dollar General store here. There's an existing gravel road that it comes back to this grass area. We're going to upgrade that road as part of this project. Again, we'll have 50 foot of paving in the front of the entrance. The access road and well pad will be gravel surfaced. Like the Dionysus pad, this is also in the Dawson Run watershed with a 75% release rate criteria. And to manage that, we are using a large wet pond to retain rainwater. The ESC GP application for this site was approved on March 9th, 2020. This site also has a general permit, a Chapter 105 general permit for an existing culvert pipe that we would like to maintain as part of this project. So to use it, we need to have it re-permitted. That permit was approved on September 25th, 2019. So that's the end of at least this part of the presentation, the reorientation. With that, if there's no questions, I'd certainly like to hand it back to Blaine.
Yeah, next we'll have Melissa Southern from Stahl Schaefer talk about the truck route and the access route to the sites, and then walk through the findings of the rather extensive traffic impact study that hopefully some of you have just looked at electronically as opposed to killing the number of trees it took for a lot of the data there. So Melissa, if you could unmute, there you go, share your screen and walk through the results of Stahl Schaefer's analysis.
Sure. Hi, I'm Melissa Southern with Stahl Schaefer Engineering. We're located at 6000 Town Center Boulevard in Canonsburg. Let me share my screen with you here and we can kind of talk about the haul routes and the traffic study that was completed. Okay, can everyone see this okay?
No,
No. Okay. Okay, let's. Did it not work? All right, I think I got it now. Sorry about that. Can you see the screen now?
there we go. Good.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll try to zoom in on it a little more there. Okay, so what you see here are the haul routes for the Dionysus and Leto well pads. The route for as shown to the Dionysus is off of Middle Road Extension. Excuse me. The haul route will be via William Flynn Highway onto Route 910 up to Middle Road Extension. Leto, let me close this out here, is located off of Oak Road. Again, it's the same haul route as Dionysus from William Flynn Highway, Route 910 up to Oak Road. If I click, okay, so a traffic impact study was completed to identify existing operations of selected study intersections and to identify potential traffic impacts within the study area resulting from the proposed Dionysus and the Leto well pad operations. As shown in this slide, the study area was selected within the vicinity of the site and to include intersections of concern previously identified due to the proposed haul routes for each well pad. There were a total of 5 study intersections, 3 existing intersections along Route 910, and then each of the proposed site access points. Okay. As shown, the 3 existing intersections along Route 910 were evaluated. Includes intersection number 1, Gibsonia Road with Middle Road, intersection 2, Gibsonia Road with Middle Road Extension, and intersection 3, Gibsonia Road with Oak Road. Each intersection is currently controlled by a stop sign on the minor street approaches, and the minor street approaches provide a single lane for all left and right turn movements onto Gibsonia Road. Gibsonia Road is a 2-lane roadway. It provides no turn lanes currently along this segment of roadway within the study intersections. The traffic impact study evaluated the existing and future intersection operations, including capacity analyses, queue analyses, turn lane warrant evaluations, and signal warrant evaluations. This slide presents the results of the capacity analyses completed for the existing operating conditions at the study intersections along Gibsonia Road. The capacity analyses determines how well an intersection operates and assigns a level of service grade letter, A to F, with A representing the best operating conditions and F representing the worst operating conditions. As shown, each intersection currently operates at acceptable overall intersection levels of service, which would be in the range of level service A through D. Middle Road approach currently operates at a level service F in the peak hours that were analyzed, AM and PM, which represent a morning and an afternoon rush hour. Oak Road currently operates, or pardon me, Middle Road Extension currently operates at acceptable levels of service, ranging between level service A and D, and Oak Road operates at acceptable level of service in the AM. In the afternoon, it operates at what we call level service E, which typically indicates that the approach is reaching or at near the available capacity. The study evaluated the performance to determine if the intersections would satisfy the requirements for installation of traffic signals following PennDOT and Federal Highway Administration guidelines. The evaluation determined that currently, based on today's traffic, Gibsonia Road and Middle Road and Gibsonia Road and Oak Road both currently satisfy traffic signals. This evaluation was also, turn lane evaluation was also completed. As shown in this graphic, based on this evaluation, the intersection of Gibsonia Road and Middle Road currently meet warrants for a right turn lane and a left turn lane. The intersection of Gibsonia Road and Middle Road Extension currently meet warrants for a left turn lane, and the intersection of Gibsonia Road and Oak Road currently meet warrants for a left turn lane. So in order to determine the traffic impacts of a proposed development, an evaluation is typically completed for future year conditions, comparing without development traffic to with development traffic. We call it the no build to the build scenario. Based on Olympus Energy schedule of operations, traffic conditions for the Dionysus well pad were evaluated for year 2020, and traffic analysis for the Leto well pad were evaluated for year 2024. These years were selected, like I said, based on Olympus Energy's schedule for the well pads, and analysis was completed for these conditions based on the most traffic intensive stage for a well pad, which is hydraulic fracturing, also called completions. This figure summarizes the capacity analyses completed for year 2020 and year 2024 without the development. So this would be future traffic volumes grown and analyzed, not including the well pads. As shown, each intersection is forecasted to continue to operate at acceptable overall intersection levels of service, A to D. Middle road approach continues to operate at failure. Middle road extension approach continues to operate at acceptable levels of service. And Oak Road approach is forecasted to continue to operate at acceptable levels of service in the AM, and it's near a level service, which again is at or near capacity. Did it go? Yes. Okay. So then the next slide shows that the capacity analysis for, there we go, for, oh, how do I go back? There we go. Pardon me. So this figure shows the analyses with the Dionysus well pad in year 2022, which is during their fracturing stage. Each of the middle road overall continue to operate at failure at acceptable levels afternoon in year 2020. And stage for hydraulic again is forecast to operate at approach continuation. Approach is forecasted to continue intersection level service to be maintained, and or the increase is overall is less than 10 seconds. So this final slide is just kind of a summary of everything I just presented, our findings and recommendations. At intersection number 1, which is Gibsonia Road and Middle Road, it was determined that the results of the capacity analysis showed that it operated at overall intersection of acceptable conditions. It's a level service A in the morning and a level service B in the afternoon under existing conditions. The overall intersection will continue to operate at acceptable levels of service with the impact of traffic associated with the Dionysus and Leto well pads. These levels of service will meet PennDOT's overall intersection requirements, where the evaluation of the without to with conditions will maintain level of service or increase delay no more than 10 seconds. Traffic analyses also determined that this intersection currently meets traffic signal warrants based on existing volumes, as well as warrants for installation of a left turn lane and a right turn lane. At the second intersection, Gibsonia Road and Middle Road Extension, The results of the capacity analysis indicate that the intersection operates at an overall intersection level service A, which is acceptable conditions, and continues to operate at acceptable conditions with the traffic associated with both Dionysus and Leto well pads. Again, these levels of service meet PennDOT's overall intersection level service criteria between the without development and to with development conditions. The traffic analyses also determined that a left turn lane is warranted at this intersection. No signals wards were met at this intersection for any of the analysis scenarios analyzed. The last intersection on Route 910 is the Gibsonia Road, Oak Road intersection. This intersection resulted in, again, an overall intersection level service that are acceptable conditions today and will continue to operate at acceptable levels of service in the future without and with either well pad. The Oak Road approach to Gibsonia Road currently operates at a level service C in the morning rush hour and a level service E in the afternoon rush hour. Existing, this will continue on in the future for the without and with development of Dionysus and without development of the Leto. Once Leto traffic associated with the well pad accesses Oak Road, it's going to slightly increase delay less than 18 seconds per vehicle, and it will push the approach to approach to a level service F. However, the overall intersection of level service meets PennDOT's requirements, where the evaluation, again, from the without to with development conditions results in a level of service that can be maintained, or the overall intersection delay has increased by less than or equal to 10 seconds. The traffic analyses also determined that a traffic signal is currently warranted at this intersection today based on existing traffic volumes, and a left turn lane is currently warranted at this intersection today based on these traffic volumes. Lastly is looking at the site driveways and their analyses during their operations. The results of the capacity analyses completed determined that the overall intersection for the Dionysus well pad with Middle Road extension operates at an overall intersection level service A for the peak hours analyzed. It is recommended that the access be provided for a full access low volume driveway to Middle Road. The driveway should accommodate one lane of travel entering and one lane of travel exiting. We also recommend that a stop sign be installed on the Dionysus approach to Middle Road extension, where Middle Road extension will continue to operate as free-flowing. Dionysus approach will stop operating as a two-way stop control intersection. And also it is recommended that that we continue coordination with Allegheny County Department of Public Works, since the county holds jurisdiction over Middle Road extension, just to determine what improvements are necessary to ensure safe access along the roadway. At the Leto driveway with Oak Road, the results of the capacity analyses also showed that the intersection will operate at an overall intersection level service A for both peak hours analyzed. This meets PennDOT's criteria for new unsignalized intersections, as did the intersection for Dionysus, where PennDOT's criteria requires an overall intersection level service C for rural locations and overall intersection level service D for urban locations. We are analyzing both of these to operate at an overall intersection level service A. Again, it's recommended that the Leto well pad provide a full access low volume driveway, providing one lane of traffic entering and one lane of traffic exiting. It is also recommended that a stop sign be posted on the Leto well pad driveway approach to Oak Road. The intersection, again, just like the Dionysus, will operate as two-way stop control with free flow traffic on Oak Road, and all traffic on Leto Road approach will be required to stop to proceeding.
Melissa, just a couple clarifying points. In projecting traffic to and from Leto and Dionysus, am I correct that you were taking the peak levels of traffic that would occur during hydraulic fracturing?
Correct,
right?
yeah. And you would assume the highest level of traffic occurring during their peak operations, and that's applied to the highest level of traffic occurring out on the roadways today, the peak hours occurring out there as well.
And so that's just for the temporary time period during the couple weeks for each well that hydraulic fracturing is taking place. Is that correct?
Yes. yes. This
So-
looks at the absolute worst case scenario. Mhm.
And it's worst case also in that you're assuming that 100% of the water has to be trucked to both sites. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the trucks are factored into the analyses. So you will be increasing the truck traffic, and that was included in the results, yes.
So, kind of to put a button on this, then I mean, your analysis is there's no material negative impact on any of these intersections, slight impact on the one on Oak Road, even during those limited periods when hydraulic fracturing has taken place, and even assuming that all the water is going to be trucked to those sites. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So I suspect the Planning Commission may have some questions, but just to wrap this all up, I would like Mr. Johnson to show his face on the screen, because he's our Vice President of Operations and can give an update on Olympus's efforts to procure water in a fashion so that it need not be trucked. Manny, are you there?
I'm here. Good evening, everybody. And to Blaine's comment there, currently we've been working with two water authorities, one being Oakmont Water Authority and one being Hampton Shaler Water Authority. And both of those water authorities have agreed to work with us and are going to provide us with water up to those locations. So with that being said, that will remove a lot of the water trucks from that are needed for hydraulic fracturing.
So Manny, what's the status of those? Where do they stand right now?
Yeah, sure. So Hampton Shaler, they've provided us with a letter of intent to work with us, and then Oakmont is currently working through their feasibility study for us. And as we continue to work through the process, our goal will be to eliminate, as many water trucks as possible.
Based on your discussion so far, any sense on the degree of percentage of reduction that you're going to be able to effectuate here?
Sure. So, right now, with kind of their intent and through their feasibility, it would approximately eliminate, 75% of the water trucks off the roads there. So it's been going well with them.
And it's your hope that these arrangements would be finalized with both authorities within the next several months?
Yes, sir. And our intent is to do everything we can to eliminate more if possible.
Okay, so that is the content of our update. We're happy to have the commission direct any questions to any of our folks that are here tonight. We're not going to go over each point of the letter and the response, but certainly if commission members have any specific questions or follow up on any of the items that were addressed in that letter, feel free to ask away, with the caveat that our sound consultant is not available tonight, so we would make him available next month.
Quick question for your team there, Blaine. They made a statement, the last gentleman there, that that would eliminate up to 75% of the truck traffic hauling water. What would that leave on a daily basis of the 25%? Equate that in the number of trucks.
Sure. So, if you're in that 75% range, and if you look at the trip, and so correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you look at the completions, hydraulic fracturing, if say you're moving 400 to 500 water trucks a day, and you eliminate 75% of that, that's going to drop you down into that 100 trucks a day range.
Yeah, you would be around 11 trucks in a peak hour.
I'm sorry, how many trucks?
11 approximately
11 trucks an hour, right?
Right.
during the peak hours.
Yeah, and Melissa, just your analyses, evaluates capacity, not on the overall daily traffic, but on the peak hours. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it looks at the highest hour that occurs in the morning and the highest hour that occurs in the afternoon. Yeah. And everything operated acceptably overall out there, that the reduction of trucks, it will still continue to operate acceptably.
Would the 11 trucks an hour still cause the Oak Road inbound traffic to fail?
Without analyzing it, I can't be sure, but I would suspect that you would be operating pretty much as your no build conditions. 11 trucks isn't a large, and 11 vehicles in general is not a large number of vehicles on approach to make a major delay or impact.
I would say 11 vehicles is basically what, one every 5.5 minutes of a heavy truck. I would say that that's going to make more of an impact than most people think, since those trucks coming up Oak Road are going to be at a very slow rate as compared to a standard vehicle. I think it might make a bigger difference than some of these people are anticipating.
One thing I've noticed, Bill, is they all seem to travel in packs also.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not just like one truck every 5 minutes. You get 5 trucks at one time. At least that's what I noticed when they were doing the fracking over at the well in Indiana.
Yes.
Another question, this would be in regards to the Dionysus well, more an engineering question. We walked the site it's been a while, okay. But one thing I noticed when we were at that site, you have 2 detention ponds, as you pointed out. One goes towards the Deer Creek and one heads towards Dawson Creek, which both run into Deer Creek. My question is, putting those detention ponds on the east and the west side create the necessity for a lot of disturbance, because you're putting them both in the woods, which is eliminating a lot of your natural buffer. Is there a way to consolidate those and put those in the field in front of the site to the north of it, where you have another pond, which I'm assuming is something with the pad itself? But is it possible to consolidate those into one pond and then still have discharges over to those 2 watersheds that are designed to release the required rates out of one pond? And I'm just trying to preserve the woods and the buffer that's there.
Joe, can you?
Yes, yeah, I can. And I can actually maybe share a screen here so that we could go back to an earlier drawing. So it understood your point completely. So first off, this is not a pond. This is actually a topsoil stockpile. So what happens is when construction begins, the contractor will strip topsoil from the entire disturbed area, and we'll place that in a pile for use later on when we restore the site. But to your point, we do have 2 ponds, one on either side. So for us to be able to meet the PADEP guidance for stormwater, we need to be monitoring our points of interest from each of those ponds. And in this case, like I said, we're dealing with 2 watersheds. So you can see the ridge line kind of runs through the middle. We would really need 1 pond on either side of that ridge line to be able to balance our water as it leaves the site. So at least in this case, it'd be very difficult to have 1 pond that we could discharge in basically both directions. So given the very limited area here where there's open field, I don't know that we've got the opportunity to be able to do that. Also keeping in mind just elevations for stormwater. Ponds generally need to be lower than your site disturbance so that you can collect everything that comes off of there. So when you start looking at the elevations of the pad and the drainage areas that need to be collected, it would make it very difficult to spot it in the open field area.
When I walk the site, it all slopes pretty steeply downhill towards Middle Road Extension there. So I do think you have the opportunity to gravity flow everything down to 1 pond.
On the western side, and sorry, I certainly don't mean to interrupt, but you are correct. It's pretty steep slope down to Middle Road Extension. The issue is our site straddles two different watersheds. So
I understand.
we need to be able to direct stormwater in both directions to maintain current flows.
You could do that with 2 outlet structures, one heading in each direction out of a common pond.
No, absolutely. Technically, that's a solution. I'm just not sure if we can route water from one side of a ridge to the other to balance the situation.
You would have to meter them into each, so you're not exceeding your allowance into each watershed.
That
You know,
will cer-
I think it's worth looking at, because
yeah, well,
you know, we were
certainly-
down in that wooded area there, and that's a pretty nice wooded area, and I'd hate to see it destroyed when it doesn't need to be.
I understood.
And I think, I mean, you reduce your site disturbance cost as well with a little bit of infrastructure cost to achieve it.
We'll certainly take that under advisement and look into it for sure.
Well, that's all I have, gentlemen. Does anybody else on the commission have questions?
I do. This is Butala. Early on in your process, in your presentation to us, one of your representatives, and this was early on, suggested that during the fracking phase, there would be quite a bit of truck traffic. And he indicated that it was possible that the truck traffic would get to the point where we would have traffic stoppages on the township roads. He actually said that. The question came up then, well, you know, what about, you know, since these trucks are going to be running in anywhere from every 2 to every 5 minutes, what about 24/7? What about the school buses? And, you know, would the school buses and the children have to be stopped? And he said, yes, they would. That was his opinion at the time. Is that still your thinking? I mean, based on what I heard today, that might not be necessary at all, but I will say that I would be very, very opposed to stopping school buses and screwing around with kids' schedules getting to school in school buses. So is that something we have to be concerned about, or do you feel that given what you now appreciate, that perhaps you didn't have the information to appreciate before, traffic stoppage won't be a problem?
Manny, you want to comment on that?
Thank you for your question, John. And we do coordinate with the school buses, the school districts in that area. And it is never our intent to stop a school bus or disrupt that timing going through. And we do that in the other townships that we have operated in to make sure that the school buses can freely get in and out without trouble. So yeah, appreciate that question. And that's always at the forefront of our mind too.
So Manny, you'll work around so that you're not interfering with school bus traffic during the peak morning and afternoon hours?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have one question, and it may be for Manny. We were talking water and talking with Shaler and Oakmont water authorities. Is that on existing lines?
Currently, yes, where we're at. If there would need to be, a need for, infrastructure upgrade, if there'd be need for, obviously we'd have to have a tap placed at a particular point as well. That would be coordinated with the water authorities.
And this is may come off as a novice going out towards Saxonburg. We see water lines, cornfields for 2 miles. That's what I'm asking. When you're negotiating 75% water usage, it's pipes that are already existing around, coming across 5 farm fields and getting the water.
Mr. Banks, you kind of broke up there a little bit on and off.
Just driving out to Saxonburg and seeing some of the wells in the center of the state, you'll see water lines above ground going through farm fields, through woodlots. When we're talking about this negotiation with the current water authorities, that's usage of water lines that are currently in the ground. I'm speaking like impact to the community, that regardless of a lease to bring a water line across, up the gut of Middle Road, or, through some woodlot. Could you explain that better for me?
Sure. So two things there. I think your question kind of has two parts to it. So you will see in some areas where we will run a temporary water line, and that's what you may see in a field from time to time, and that is something that's specifically negotiated, with that landowner, with said folks there. And those are normally temporary in nature and usually only in place, during our hydraulic fracturing activity. Now, there are times as well, and this would be similar to the, our project with the municipal authority of the city of New Kensington. They would potentially upgrade part of their system in order to where we would get capacity off of them. So you kind of can work two different ways there. But the stuff you see on top of the ground, that's temporary in nature and specific to the hydraulic fracturing process.
Manny, and if you're able to finalize the transactions with the two authorities here, what would you envision? Will they be above ground, below ground?
Yeah, currently, we would, get a tap, as close to our well site as possible. Hampton, Shale, and Oakmont both have lines that are near operations. So normally they would tap the line for us. We would have an above ground meter vault, and then we would run temporary water line from that point up to the location.
And I know this question came up in another municipal meeting recently. If these arrangements are finalized, would that have an adverse impact on the regular users of those systems?
No, your residential users have primacy over our operations.
Okay.
I got a follow-up question on that water line. And I know that Oakmont has a water line that is existing, but it kind of dead ends at Middle Road and Lick Road. Have you looked at possibly extending that line into an additional capacity for the township to be able to get some of that water that you need at those sites?
Currently we're still in kind of that feasibility phase there with Oakmont, and they've got some ideas on what, capacity they could potentially provide. But until they kind of finish and walk through that feasibility, I wouldn't be able to give you the facts to that if that's a potential option, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I'd just like you to keep it in mind whenever you're in the discussion with them, that we would be interested in you, extending our our township, resident lines as well, to meet some of the goals that you have.
What was those roads again, just to be clear?
It's at the intersection of Middle Road Extension and Lick Road. So I know there are some residents out there that are in need of some water, so that would really help their cause. Currently they're on wells, and there has been some concern that they've reached out to me for possible contamination. If they're just concerned about it, they don't understand the capacity of the drilling and the fracking, but they are concerned about their well water, and I know that extending main water lines would definitely ease some of those concerns for them.
Thank you. We'll look into it.
Manny, one quick question. We've been talking about water in. What do we do with water out?
So water out, once the wells are in production, we do truck it out. And one of the questions that, always gets asked is, well, how much, right? How much and what's that look like when you're trucking out? So, for example, on the Dionysus pad, as we've turned those into production, for those first couple weeks, you may have, say, 10 to 20 water trucks a day removing that water from location. But in a matter of just a month or two, it'll go down to just a handful of trucks. And then as you go even farther out in some of our other operations, you may be only one truck a week, and then it continues to dwindle after that.
Okay, so it's it's at a peak for a month, and what was that number of trucks a day? 40?
No, you'll be around 10 to 20.
10 to 20.
And we, 10 to 20, and then as the wells continue to produce, that water falls off fairly dramatically.
Okay.
Just to confirm, there will be no kind of frack water that's stored on site. It's all going to be hauled off then?
It is hauled off. Yep. It's produced into a tank, and then we remove it,
Okay. So it's into an enclosed tank, and then at that time it's removed to a I'm guessing permitted facility for the disposal of that and treatment.
Or reused,
Reused.
in nearby completion. That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Would you be coordinating the two wells to reuse the water in the other one?
Ask that again.
I said, would you, just a question, would you be coordinating the two wells to reuse the water in the one of the other pads?
Like,
You go to the Dionysus or vice versa?
depending on timing, right? That's a fair question on how those come out. But we do reuse our water as much as we possibly can, and take it to an adjacent location that we'd be having completion activity on.
Okay. I'm not sure that I know some of the residents expressed some concern with using already used water, and they had some concerns because if you may correct me on this if I'm off, but I believe that only 10% of that water that you put into the ground comes back. So if you're putting in water that already has contaminants in it, and you're only getting 10% of that back, you have 90% more dirty water in there, and you're adding more fracking fluid to it. So do you plan on using water that's already been produced with fracking water, or is it something that you're going to use? Obviously, if you pipe it in, the best case scenario would be that it would be all fresh water.
So for this particular, completion activity, most of the water would be, municipal or fresh water, but we would bring in water from, our other locations and reuse. But it's very minor in comparison to the amount of fresh water that would come in.
How much do you anticipate of used water would you be utilizing in the wells to pump into our ground?
Probably looking less than 5%, 5% or less.
And Manny, that's common practice and actually is encouraged by DEP. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
I think this time it's good for me to say right now, as far as the commission goes on ahead, myself being a field engineer for Pennsylvania Soil and Rock, we've done the geotechnical reports for both the well pads that we're discussing here. So from now on, I'm going to abstain from any comments regarding these two specific well pads. And obviously abstain from any voting regarding anything to do with the well pads, although as far as our general ordinances and what we're looking at trying to develop here in the township, I'll definitely be a very big part of. But again, as I said, being an employee of Pennsylvania Soil and Rock, who does geotechnical engineering for Olympus Energy, from here on out, I'm going to abstain with anything regarding the well pads.
All right, thank you, Bob.
I have a general question for anybody or for any of you. Can you talk to us a little bit about the drilling muds and the composition of the muds, how much that changes and the fate of those muds? I mean, what happens with all that?
As in just, you know, kind of what its makeup is, or, you know, kind of over
Yeah,
time.
what's in it? How much is there? What do you do with it? Where does it go? And does it come back out? Or what happens? What's the fate?
The bait, is that your last?
Fate, what happens to it?
The fate. Okay, I got you there. Sometimes my West Virginia ears don't hear too good now, but yeah. So when you talk about your composition of your drilling muds, there, you know, it's going to be composed of some synthetics. A lot of times you'll have what they call a barite in it, and that is used to weight your mud to the appropriate level, that so you're slightly overbalanced when you're drilling through the Marcellus shale there. And what that does is it, you know, you'll hear the word hole conditioning, and it basically keeps that hole stable so that we can, you know, execute and, you know, drill horizontally out. And then, like, to your question of like, well, what's the fate of it? And really, from a fate standpoint, we reuse it, you know, from well to well, and continue to kind of keep that quality up. When you're dealing with drilling mud, it's one of those items that we pay very, very close attention to, because it does, you know, help us, you know, drill quicker, more efficiently if we have high quality mud there. And we could, you know, also provide you with a little more in-depth kind of ingredient list on that, if you like.
I was thinking a little more about the composition. I think I got kind of a handle on the function of it. It's the composition I'm interested in. What can you tell us about the composition? You know, I understand some of that might be proprietary, but in sort of general terms, what do you put in that stuff?
You know, obviously you've got, you know, barite, your weighting agent. You've got, so synthetics, so different types of, you know, like a synthetic oil that will be used in there. And then also you'll have some a chemical in the sense that kind of keeps the conditioning up. But I don't have like the long kind of exhaustive list for you. I'd have to provide that for you.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep, welcome.
I have 3 questions. I guess one's kind of going back to the municipal water, and just with experience we've had in the past that they've shut our water off. In the beginning, they offer so much volume and they end up taking it back, whether it's complaints from residents not getting their expected pressure, or dry season. I guess for a backup plan with traffic, do you guys have that?
Thanks for that question. So you're correct, right? If you're in a drier season and they're not able to provide, say, the capacity, or something happens to the water line itself, and that's when we would revert back to trucking the water into location there, which in turn, when Melissa did the traffic impact study, we run, you know, worst case scenario there.
Okay. And then it's also with the traffic study, were sand trucks included for the volume to bring in?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And how many would you expect in a day?
think, and not having the specific right in front of me there, we'll usually run anywhere from, say, 55 to 75 sand trucks a day, which I think you're probably 2.5 million pounds of sand a day with that, and also depending on how much we stockpile on the front end.
Okay. And as the other was part of the traffic study would be Middle Road extension with the condition that it's in of water trucks and or sand trucks passing safely. I don't think they could. I don't know what you guys think about it. If you agree that it wouldn't be safe, is there a way to prevent it?
Yeah, and I can let Melissa kind of speak to the basically kind of crossing both ways, and is it possible?
Yeah, our analyses in the study, there were, we call them auto turn evaluations were completed where we ran a WB62 truck along the route. And then we also ran about a single unit 40 size truck along the route. And we showed that the single unit 40 truck could pass, I think, within the passenger vehicle coming the other direction. Okay. There were some tight locations along the route with the larger truck, and that's when coordination with the county is going on right now to determine how to move forward with that.
So when you say coordination with the county, Olympus is talking to the county about making some improvements to that road. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The one request from Commissioner Butala is we can get you some data sheets related to the drilling mud, and we'll coordinate getting those to you.
Thank you.
Alan Banks on the Planning Commission. We're not going line by item or line by line on the response sheet, but I think some clarification or backup information on plant material and the response as far as screening and buffering is definitely warranted.
Okay. What question was that, Mr. Banks?
24 or 27. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. It was based on
27, I guess. Joe, do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So if you remember, it presented in the land development application was our viewshed report where we took some pictures and provided some sight lines from the nearest public accesses. So that would have been from along roads, businesses, and some houses. So from that report, we found that the only area where you could actually view either of the two pads was the Dionysus pad right directly at the entrance. So as part of the land development application, we provided a planting plan that would replace some of the trees and provide screening directly up the access road towards the well pad. There's certainly some issues with planting particularly large pine trees near a well pad site. So before we would move forward, I'd be very interested in the commission's issue, like a particular viewpoint or something that we could study to maybe come up with a better solution or idea to this issue.
Well, I guess the definition of the issue of planting evergreens near a well pad, defining that would be helpful. Just to state that I don't feel very comfortable with. Speaking, I guess, privately, I mean, My property sits 100 feet above your well pad. You're never going to screen it. So,
And that's really the issue, from our perspective is, we certainly will provide screening where it makes sense and, provides benefit, but we need to.
And understanding, going back to Mark Schmidt's comment though about, we're deforesting areas and not returning it. I think an effort needs to be made to return it. Clear cut it and throw some seed down to make a DEP requirement is not acceptable. And you can make an effort to, reforest the sites that you're, destroying.
Mr. Banks.
Yeah.
I said I agree with Mr. Banks. I think that there has to be a little more give and take than what I'm feeling so far, and in particular with the point he just made, and with in the question that Mark Schmidt raised about why you can't drain the fields in a manner that he suggested.
Understood. So just so I'm clear, this is more a reforestation issue than a screening issue at this point.
I haven't been proven either way, so I can't say that.
From a screening standpoint, what other types of data would you like to see, so that we could at least maybe come to a resolution on that issue?
I don't know, clear your site and take some pictures. Come on.
Well, again, I think at least from the impacted public access in homes, I think we've showed that in all cases there's adequate screening either from existing topography or existing vegetation that we're not going to remove, that will provide screening of the well site. Now, we can't do that from everywhere. And so if there's a particular view that you're most interested in beyond what we've showed in the application, we'd certainly be willing to take a
Okay,
look.
then let's make it reforestation. Does that make it feel better?
We can go back and take a look at that.
I think that the big concern that Mr. Banks had was he stayed on here that it wasn't possible to plant on steep slopes.
Hey, excuse me, if there's someone who's not speaking, if you could put yourself on mute, we're really getting a lot of secondary noise during this meeting. If there's someone named Mabel or perhaps a pet named Mabel, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so concern understood. We'll certainly take a look at the reforestation issue.
Okay. I actually have several comments. So if there's no other, is there any more planning commission members that have any comments?
No, Bill, do we want to bring in the citizens at this time?
Like I said, I had a handful of comments from their review letters. If we wanted to go over some of those.
Okay.
First one was just from the traffic impact study. I know that Bairdford Road was not in the actual haul zone, but I would like to mention that is going to be an alternative route. People are going to go off of 910 up Mountain View and Bryson to get around your haul route. So I think that should just be considered whenever you're looking at stuff. Traffic is going to be impacted in that area as well. The next thing is the number 8 with the with the mud on the road. I know that there is a DEP PA DEP requirement of 50 foot of asphalt. But I just wanted to clear up that 50 foot of asphalt from that DEP standard is going from the center line of the road. So basically, you're only getting approximately, 25 feet off of the right of way on the Lido pad. And then it would give you approximately 33 and a half feet of additional asphalt off of the Dionysus pad. I'm not sure that that's going to be a clear enough area. When we originally talked the last time, you were proposing 100 feet of asphalt. And now it's greatly reduced by 75 feet on the Lido pad and then 66 and a half feet on the Dionysus pad.
Just to reiterate for the Olympus here, the township went through a phase where they were hauling Boney out in Russellton, and trucks were making numerous trips down there, and they were diligent as they could be as sweeping the road, but dust still was everywhere. And I've seen the same thing happen at other well pads. You can run a street broom over it, but when it's muddy, all it does is smear the mud on the road. We will be very diligent on you to keep the roads clean. So I think it would behoove you to do everything that you can to beyond what the PennDOT standards are. I believe that sometimes there was, even when we asked the contractor to wash people's houses and cars. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Bill.
No, there was stipulations in prior conditional uses for the reclaimed mine. That was it was Coal Valley Sales, and they actually did have to pressure wash houses. Part of it, one of the conditions.
Well, we understand that's a concern, and it's one that Olympus takes seriously, and it's actually a requirement of DEP. I believe that the 50-foot requirement is actually a PennDOT, not DEP requirement. And I think, as explained in our response, in terms of mud and dust traveling out onto the public road, pavement actually can make that situation worse, as opposed to a rock construction entrance, which will knock all that material off the truck tires before it gets to the road.
That is a great point, sir. We're not asking to negate the rock entrance. We're just asking for additional pavement between the actual residential traveled right-of-way roadway and the rock entrance itself. We do find the need for the rock entrance. We see that it is, to scrub the tires and everything like that. Just additional paving would allow some of that excess, mud to kick off, and it would reduce on the dust load for that particular road.
And from a practical standpoint, what happens on the gravel is, in a short time, it's covered with mud and it's useless. Whereas on the paving, you can hose it off and get back to clean asphalt relatively quickly.
Joe, how would that impact the approved erosion or stormwater plan for the site?
Yeah, so, as you know, we've got permits on both sites. And whenever you go from a gravel surfaced area to a paved surface, you generate additional stormwater flow, stormwater runoff. Because of that, if we would make a change like this, we would need to go back to the PADEP and have a modification to both, if we're going to prescribe this on both sites, as modifications to both of those plans.
This is not a new request. This was a request that has came up from the initial conversations. So it was made a point to be brought up in those conversations And initially you stated that it was 100 feet. Now you're stating it's 50 feet from the right of way, which is a very big difference. So I would just like you to consider that.
Okay.
Anything else, Bill?
I am looking real quick. There are some other minor issues here.
I actually real quick to add maybe to that of, I don't know if it's an option in your plans for like the cattle guard crossing that knocks the mud off. A lot of times it's a detail added to it. I don't know if that would be an option. They work well, they need cleaned out often, but they work, if that's an alternative.
It
without
can,
redoing the plans with DEP.
right, no, it can be, and we'll certainly take, all options here under advisement. I think we understand the issue, and we'll do what we can to make sure we rectify it as possible.
There was some more about the traffic. Question 16 was, the PPC plan, where to account for excess of traffic or accidents. You kind of stated that you implement those as needed. If this is a common, can you have some type of plan for us or give us some kind of scenario? And basically state to us what trigger points have to take place for you to have action on something. Does there need to be one accident, 2 accidents? Does it need to have, 10 accidents in a week? Just some guidance on what your standard is and when you're going to actually take action on the traffic, the increased traffic, and whatever that is, whether it be putting more flaggers out or, staging areas different or anything like that.
Manny, can you add anything there?
Sure. So in the event that there was an incident or traffic getting backed up during the the operations, we address each one individually, and are able to make changes depending on exactly what has taken place there. So each and every one of them, sir, we take very seriously, and if we do need to come up with an alternative plan, we do work on them.
You don't have any standard plans that you state that if traffic is slowed down to this much, or there's an accident here, there's no protocols already put in place, so you can just act on those, and your team already knows how to act on them, so they don't have to call somebody to respond to a traffic pileup?
Yeah, so in the event there is an incident, myself and our operations team would be notified, and we would, notify the appropriate people, especially, if you are causing a backup on a major roadway there. Kim Price, our community relations director, is one of the folks that would potentially be in touch and would let you guys know exactly, what our actions would be. If it would be something that would be more, systemic, we have piloted in the past in areas that, have, been problematic if we've had a traffic that was slowing things down. And then back to the question, obviously, with the school buses, we definitely keep an eye on and making sure there's no violators during that time as well. So we do have a chain of command that we use in the event of an incident.
Okay, so you have a chain of command, but you don't necessarily have a standard practice on if traffic is backed up, is it a standstill for 5 minutes or more? You don't have a policy on, hey, we need to call somebody, we need to to contact our truck drivers to make sure that they are staying at the staging area longer? Do you have a procedure like that?
So we don't have a formal, written procedure out, but in the event those do take place, we have contacts with all of our vendors. We immediately address them. If we need to shut down, we can usually get to folks fairly quickly in that effort.
Okay. Would you be obliged to having some kind of thing stating that if there was a traffic backup and traffic was standstill for 5 minutes, or say you had 4 trucks that were, trying to get into the access and they were piling up on Oak Road or Middle Road, that they would know a formal procedure that they should call the staging area to hold trucks back for, say, 20 minutes till they get caught up? Is that something that would be reasonable?
5 minutes, would be something I think that would be a little bit difficult, right? But we can get something out to you kind of in the sense of, hey, here's kind of our protocol. In the event that if we are backing up traffic, here's the steps that we take.
Okay, I think that would be helpful to the township, especially the police department. I know their concern is that traffic, would be backed up some, and then they would have to deal with any kind of issues that arise from that. So that would be very beneficial going forward.
And we do, one thing to mention, as we're coming into an area, we make contact with the local fire departments. We make contact with the local police and establish those lines in the event that we would need an assistance. For example, in one of the areas we operate with, we'll coordinate with the local police and let them know that we have a rig coming in, and that relationship has worked really well.
Maybe Joe could answer this too. I know stacking of vehicles out onto the public road obviously is a concern. Joe, what are the length of the access drives for Dionysus and Leto?
I don't know offhand. I do know that both are very long. If I was to guess by just looking at the drawing scale, probably 1,000 feet on each of them maybe. So let's say between 800 and 1,000 maybe.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
That was good input. I appreciate that.
And one thing to keep in mind too, we do place our gates, our security gates far enough, up the access road so trucks can pull off safely. And then during the completion, activity, we do have a security guard out there that also is monitoring and making sure the traffic is flowing appropriately as well. We don't want to stack any trucks up on that main road.
What is your typical staging of trucks minutes apart? Is it a 10-minute apart, or is it a 5-minute apart, or is it a 20-minute apart? Typically, do you have a standard?
No, we do not have a standard in that. And Melissa could probably speak to a little bit more on how she does the traffic impact study.
With the study, it does not incorporate the stacking of trucks. It's in the analyses, it just incorporates the total volume as in with the intersections. The operations, I think we're still coordinating with the county on how to maneuver through Middle Road Extension.
Okay.
Like Middle Road Extension is, I know it's a county road, but it's all West Deer Township residents that travel that road. And that's, I think, our main concern is it's the residents here traveling, and we want it to be safe. And I know that to work with them for improvements, but I think maybe if I can help Bill out a little bit, I think what he's looking for maybe is a backup plan of, do you have a staging secured? Do you have a plan in place just in case, whether it's to reroute trucks back to the staging or say, hey, moving forward, we're going to use staging, not, shoot, something happened. We can't get trucks in and out as we thought. We're looking to secure the property. And then 7 to 10 days later, the problem is addressed. And then, oh, well, we have 3 days left to frack, and it's kind of swept under the rug. I think maybe a backup plan in place would maybe satisfy some of us. Does that help, Bill?
That's kind of what I was thinking of. So if something does happen and we are getting backed up, that there is some kind of plan.
We'll look into that.
Okay. Now there's also, we did have a question on the actual staging of it as well. And if there was any staging that was planned for inside the township. You guys stated that there wasn't any, currently you didn't have any plans to stage any, trucks or storage or anything like that inside the township. Is that still the case?
So, we don't have, current plans to, stage our permanent, equipment or to, have a yard. In the event, that you would have per se, as you guys were alluding to, Suzanne and Bill there, and with the, hey, do you have a place to reroute trucks? Do you have a backup plan? That potentially would exist in the township itself, but as in like a, permanent staging area, no, we don't have an intent for that.
Okay, I think that should be included in the conditional use. If not in the conditional use, at least in the land development portion of it, of the application of where are these trucks going to go if you're staging them. If you're getting sand from your, this place that you get sand from, and they got, trucks that are backing up, where are you going to have to pull off? Is that in the township? If it is, then we need to address, possibly some type of noise from there, no idling, something like that to that effect. But I think it needs to be addressed if there is any kind of staging that's going to happen, that it should be known where that staging is going to occur.
Okay.
And then this is for the traffic impact fee, and it's kind of just, you already answered it, but it's on the truck trip calculation. Is there any kind of denotion, and we got the traffic study a little bit late for me to review all the 538 pages of it, which I believe it's probably pretty intense, but I will take a look at it. Is there anything that is like a truck trip worksheet that denotes the to and the from of the actual truck passages?
Yeah, the information that we used in the analysis was provided to us from Olympus in a peak hour. There were a total of 46 trips that are anticipated to occur. That would be in the PM peak hour, which I believe is how your impact fee is typically calculated.
Okay.
So the information would be whatever your impact fee is times that PM peak hour trip of 46.
Okay, so
and that assumes, I guess, the 100% water is being hauled.
now for the actual the trip, and I just want to clarify, from the trip, would it be one trip from the origin to the well pad, and then an additional trip from the well pad back to we'll call it the home location?
Right. It's 46 is the total. It's the round trip. So you have 23 trips entering to the site and then 23 trips exiting from the site in the peak hour. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear.
Excuse me, I'm a little confused. Didn't you just told us you had 55 to 75 sand trucks a day. How does that figure into what you just said, or am I confused?
In a day, so the day would be over a course of 24 hours. What we analyze is that what's happening in the peak hour. So 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon.
Okay.
Does that include contractors during frac that, you know, if there's probably 40 some vehicles on location and they do shift change in that peak time, or do you divide that by the day?
There were, well, we classified it as a passenger vehicle. So it was anticipated that maybe in that peak hour, one passenger vehicle would come to the site and one passenger vehicle would leave the site for such situations as that.
Okay. I don't know if that adds up correct.
We also had a question on what would occur if there was an operation that was prolonged or a prolonged stoppage. Is that and you guys said that, you know, it would be, you know, possibly weather or shortage of materials or labor, anything like that. What is the plan for a site if it's prolonged delay to occur? And are there instances in the development process that the site would need to be secured for any safety reasons? Say something whenever the fence isn't installed. And how would you go about securing that site for safety if it was something happened that, and anything can happen now with the whole pandemic that we've been experiencing, everything that we've never seen before is happening now. So we just want to make sure that if there's any part in that process that is unsafe, how are you going to secure it if it is stopped for whatever reason?
So, you know, obviously during, you know, particular processes, if we're in the middle of completion activity and to your point with the pandemic, right, you don't necessarily know exactly what, you know, could come there. But at that point, we would, you know, especially with the amount of equipment on location, you know, we would maintain either security out there, or we would, you know, if we've got the fence up, the security fence, you know, we would either get out there, get the fence installed, or if the fence is already installed, we'd lock it and secure it that way.
Okay, so you would have no hesitation if it was prolonged and the fence wasn't up to secure it with the fence?
No, we don't. We're able to.
Perfect. That's exactly what we were looking to get. So now there was also a question on any kind of timing for the drilling operations, any schedules estimated or otherwise. And you said that you're going to be prepared to discuss the timeline for each phase, which we can do now. And then I think it would also be helpful to not only the planning commission, but the board of supervisors, when we submit information to them, that they see that process in writing, to see kind of just a timeline of how many days each process takes and the extended amount of time, if that, you know, how long does fracking take, for instance?
Manny, I think you could probably answer that generically. I mean, typically what's the build out, putting aside the specific dates it occurs, what is the typical time for the build out of the construction of the pad and the vertical drilling per well, the horizontal drilling per well, and the hydraulic fracturing per well?
You want to go per well, or specific to these, Blaine?
It's specific to this pad or these two pads.
Okay, sure. So, you know, normal civil site construction, you know, you'll see that, you know, approximately around that 60-day window there to get the pad constructed. You know, on the drilling side, and I'll kind of speak on both sides to kind of cover both Leto and Dionysus there, just in general there, but you're probably looking at 100 to 150 days of drilling, and that includes the vertical and the horizontal sections there. And then on the completion side or the hydraulic fracturing side, you're going to be between that 30 and 70 day range for the hydraulic fracturing. And then kind of when you get done with the hydraulic fracturing process, you'll drill out and clean up the wells, and those are similar in that 30 to 50 day range. And then on the production side, as we've got flowback equipment out there, that would be in that 30 to 60 day range as well.
Okay, and that's going to be for each well that is drilled on the well pad.
No, that's for Manny. That's for the what's the number of wells that are going to be drilled on each initially? 5.
Yep, that covers the 5 wells on Dionysus and the 5 wells on the Leto. So that's the whole the full amount of wells for this time for Dionysus and Leto.
So you're going to drill all the wells at the same time?
So we'll drill, current schedule, obviously, depends, and schedules do change. So I just want to be careful with that. But yeah, currently, the plan is to do 5 wells on the Dionysus and then 5 wells on Leto.
Okay, so you'll drill them all at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, when you say all at the same time, just so it's clear, so like, for example, on Leto, you'll come in and drill in a serial fashion all the horizontals or the verticals, and then you'll come back and drill in a serial fashion all the verticals. Then you'll come back and frack all 5 in a row. Is that right?
Yeah, you'll do, depending on if you go, you do 5 verticals, and then you would do the horizontal sections, and then you would come in and do the completion activity, Blaine.
Okay, so just to make it clear, so if you start drilling vertically for 1 and day 1 starts, you'll have at day 150 approximately, you'll have all your verticals and all your horizontals drilled?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you're going to do all 5. They're not going to be simultaneous, but it's going to be in that window of, I'm going to drill this one, then I'm going to drill this one, then I'm going to drill this one. I'm not going to break down equipment and then take it off and then bring it back, a year from now and then re-drill.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I'm clear here on that concept, and at times you would bring in what they call a top hole rig that will do the vertical sections. And then, we would look at potentially, bringing in a horizontal rig after that piece as well. So you would either do it what they'll call with a top hole rig, and then you'll bring in the horizontal rig, or you would what they'll call grassroots it, and you do it all with one rig. And that all depends on timing. It all depends on, kind of what our other current schedule looks like there. So just want to make sure I'm clear that you could go 2 different ways there.
Okay. But it's going to typically, you're going to hit all those 5 wells at one time, and then on the other pad, you'll hit all the 5 wells again.
Right. The one thing you can run into, and just want to be very clear, with it, there are times that the 5 verticals would be done, the top hole rig. And then we would come back, at some time after to finish the horizontals out as well.
Okay.
Just want to be very clear on that part there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the transparency. I really do. Now on those, are those going to be the max amount of wells on those, the 5 and the 5, or is there going to be additional? I thought there was one well pad that was able to accept 9 wells, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so, currently the plan is, 5 at Leto, but on the Dionysus, there is potential for more additional wells. Our current schedule just has us at the 5, but there is the potential for more wells at the Dionysus pad.
Okay, so Dionysus, you could potentially do the 5 and then come back at a later time and do, say, 3 or whatever the remaining number is.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's clear. So,
No, I appreciate you asking it.
yeah. Is there any way that you could kind of put that in writing just as a little thing so I can forward it easy onto my board of supervisors so they know exactly what it is? But I'm happy to see that you're grouping those together and you're not just doing one pilot and then, you know, coming back, you know, in a year and redisturbing the site again. So
that's right. We can get you, you know, maybe a follow up to the response letter on that. You know, just keeping in mind, obviously, it's much less expensive for Olympus to do a cluster of wells at the same time as opposed to doing one, going off, demobilizing, remobilizing, et cetera. So there's a real incentive on Olympus's part to group the number of wells they're doing in serial fashion as much as they can.
Yeah, and we understand that, but we have heard some stories of, you know, doing one well here and then coming back 3 years later, doing another one, and then coming back 2 years later and doing another one. So we just want to make it, you know, clear to everybody that you're going to try to do it in a group-like fashion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill, this is Patrick. Just a quick question regarding the number of wells per pad. Is it accurate to say that in the future, you know, Olympus could come back and put, you know, a number of additional wells in depending on demand? I mean, it's my understanding those pads hold or potentially hold considerably more than 5 wells.
That's correct.
So like, for example, you know, 10 years from now, if there's demand, you could come back and do 5 more or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's some site limits in terms of what lease rights Olympus has obtained, but theoretically that's possible. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Going through some of the other ones here. There's a lot of sound stuff, but I won't, since your sound guy isn't here, I won't waste everybody's time with those. This is kind of dealing with sound, but it's more of on the complaint. So you stated that when a noise complaint happens, they'll do a 72-hour sound monitoring and investigate the situation. So basically, I wanted to know what your procedure in detail was, and then you stated kind of a long answer that you self-investigate it, and if you feel the noise that they hear is related to the Olympus's operations, they'll monitor some more, and then after they monitor it, they'll try to find a solution while keeping in mind with the township ordinances. Do you ever notify the township of a noise complaint? And that 72 hours seems like a pretty long window to monitor it if not coming up with a solution. I'm not so sure if your fracking is only going to take 30 to, you know, 30 days or something like that, that if you get a noise complaint, you monitor it, and then you still can't figure something out, and you monitor it again, and then you monitor it more, and now we're at like 15, 20 days. What's your realistic process on it? I'm sure that this hasn't been an issue just in West Deer, that you've dealt with this before.
Someone, Scott. Scott.
Yeah, sure. I can handle this. So I'm Scott Cleveland, the director of EHS and regulatory for Olympus. And to answer your question, Bill, if we receive the complaint ourselves, we try and work with the homeowners to determine time frame when they may have may have heard, noise that they feel was a nuisance. And then we take a look back at our operations to see if there's anything possible that would have created a louder sound than normal. And then if we determine that we think it's something from our operations, then we typically will monitor and in some cases have taken additional steps to address any noise concerns on the site, whether that be something to deafen some of the sound pointed in maybe one direction, or we try to investigate that. Not all complaints that we have received on a sound with regards to sound has been something from our operations. The homeowners as best we can to determine where that sound's coming from, and if it is impacting them, then do something about that. I think with the ordinance that you have, is if a resident contacts the township, and then that triggers into some of the timeframes we have to respond and do some surveying there. But typically we take our complaints very seriously, and we work with the homeowner to try and figure out exactly what that sound may be coming from.
And in one of the reasons you do a longer period, in fact, a lot of ordinances, even up front, want 72 hours of ambient monitoring because it evens things out based on weekday versus weekend noise levels and other intervening events. So the purpose of the longer periods actually to get a more accurate read on what may be causing the sound and what those levels are.
Yeah, and we try to actually listen to what those sound clips are, not just decibel levels. A lot of times we find insects, birds, lawn mowing creates to some higher noises. So if you get in a weekend, sometimes you may have like that lawn mowing, you may have more people outside. That's why you try and get it over kind of a 3-day period. And Tage will speak probably more to that next month, but that's kind of our way of handling any sound concerns. Like any concerns, we try to work with our homeowners and try and determine what the best way to fix it is.
And that's in and above whether Olympus is under the ordinance requirements. Is that right?
That's correct. So we also look at whether that sound level. Sometimes you can hear sounds that don't necessarily exceed an ordinance level, but are kind of a different sound than maybe ambient. And so we try to determine, number one, our compliance, but number two, if there's a different sound that may be causing some concern.
Okay. So if it is a resident that calls your hotline, there is no contact with the township to notify them that you've received a noise complaint and you're actively monitoring the situation and trying to mitigate it?
I think it's case-by-case basis. We don't always contact the township when we're working with a homeowner to try and resolve their concern. They're obviously free to call the township and make that known. But sometimes they just want to work with us and try to resolve the issue.
Okay. I wanted to jump back on the road mud. I know we've talked at great lengths about it, but I did remember one thing. Since Oak Road's a state road and the county is a county road, or the Middle Road extension is a county road, and you've stated before that there's certain standards that you have to meet to ensure that road is kept clean. Is there any way that you can give us those standards, and then who your regulating authority is on each of those roads and their contact information in case we would have to follow up on any kind of road mud?
Yeah, we can do that.
Perfect. I'm almost done, Mark, I promise. Okay, so on 29, about the fence detail. You stated that it was submitted in tab 4, exhibit 4. Tab 4 and exhibit 4, or exhibit B rather, only shows the location of the fence and it doesn't provide a detail of it. I did find in tab 3, D, screening and fencing, a narrative that stated, stated that it was 6-foot high chain link fence to be installed, 3 strands of barbed wire, and some, man gates and everything like that. Can you provide a graphic detail of that fence detail, just for on that the set of the plans instead of just in the narrative? So whenever they go to review the plans at the Board of Supervisors, they'll know exactly what kind of fence that it is, and they won't have to search around, just for clarity's sake on it.
We can do that.
Okay. Then there was another portion about them being embedded in the ground with concrete. And I do know that you do have some safety concerns because I'm sure that at times you're going to have to remove those fences to mobilize equipment and everything like that. I know the Planning Commission, when we originally talked to it, at least requested the minimum at the corners and then at every gate on both sides of each gate. And then I think we talked about a distance for intermediate posts to be concreted in a span of every 20 feet or so. Would that give you enough access to be able to mobilize all your equipment efficiently?
Yeah, I think I don't see a particular issue with that, Bill, in regards to what pieces we concrete there, but we'll provide you a firm detail on that.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, not to interrupt you, but if there are any citizens out there that have any questions, could they open up a chat line to you and let you know so that you could unmute them when the time comes, when you're done?
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Mark. Thank you. Okay. Question 30 was there was no lighting plan provided. You stated that the on-site lighting needs are established to ensure safe operations of equipment that's being operated at any given point in time and can change over time. We certainly, understand that, and we appreciate your safety concerns. I know that you guys pride yourself on being, a very safe company. But can you provide us some type of typical lighting plan for each phase, such as, the type of fixtures, the lumens they would create, and the approximate location? I know that it's not going to be exact because whenever you're drilling or when you're doing your operations, you're going to adjust them because you do have night operations to see the best that you can to be the safest. But I think it would be beneficial to the Planning Commission to be able to see what kind of fixtures are out there so we can better help you mitigate any problems that would come up in the future.
We'll look into that.
Okay. And then my last question, I got a couple other residents that have chimed in, but not too many more. So on the proposed laterals that are going to be drilled, and I asked if they were going to be presented to the township prior to drilling. And then we asked on it, how do you know that you're going to be on the right path? And what's the zone of influence when those drilling for the laterals? Meaning, how far will they typically pull that gas from off of that lateral. You didn't really give me a clear answer on it, so I just wanted to give you the opportunity to address that if you can at this time.
I'll kind of take that one. So, Leto and, Dionysus, our wells will kind of go in a northwesterly or southeasterly directional there. And normally, for us, we do said 5 wells, we would space somewhere between, say, 750 and 1,000 feet apart. So in that general range. And then, as we're drilling through the horizontal sections, we have, the directional tools in the well that, tell us, which formation that we're in there. And that's kind of how we design our completions.
Okay, so if you're putting them anywhere from 750 to 1,000 feet apart, your typical spread's going to be what, up to 500 feet off of your lateral, approximately?
Yeah, estimates, right? That's very not down to the exact footage there, but we do space them appropriately to maximize the amount of drainage that we can have there between those lateral sections.
Well, and I'm not looking for an exact, but there have been some residents that reached out to me that were concerned that say that lateral was a quarter mile away from them. They wanted to know if it was going to be something that would realistically be sucking gas from underneath their property. If you're within, a couple hundred to 500 feet or whatever of that, estimate, say we estimated at 500 and you're at 70 or at 750, I don't think that's unrealistic. But there were people out there asking what the zone of influence was that it was going to pull from.
Actually, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's dealt with that in a case called Briggs. So it's, the zone of influence doesn't go on forever, but exactly how far gas is going to pull, no one can predict that down to the foot, but certainly it's not going to pull from a quarter mile away.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So it's going to be probably max 1,000 feet or so.
I'm Manny. I don't know. I'm as a lawyer, I can't answer that, and I don't know whether I can either. So.
And we have one thing, to just bring up there. If we are close, say to a non-leased resident, Bill, we do buffer, those zones, and we do surveys. So just something to keep in mind, that the conscious effort there.
Okay. And I think that's what the residents kind of wanted to know was how are they going to kind of know? But you say you do perform surveys, so you do kind of know where you're drilling your laterals then?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, you know to precise to the foot where your lateral is going to be, right?
Yeah, we're very precise on the drilling side there with our measurement while drilling tools.
Okay. Is that provided to the township where you're going to drill those laterals?
So you do have the permit that is filed with the DEP that and Scott helped me on what it does show there.
From what I understand is that that permit only tells you what they are vertically. It does not tell you your horizontals.
Yeah, and our plat should show. We're also required to go out, on either side of our laterals to do a survey to make sure if there are abandoned old conventional wells that we know about those as well. So we do have those plats that we submit, and then the surveys that we do, a certain distance off those laterals.
Okay, so you do or do not provide the location of the laterals to the township?
We could provide whatever we submit to the state.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically not something we've provided in the past, I don't believe.
I mean, the applications for the state well permits are publicly available.
Okay, I'm just asking a question, sir. Just. Okay, that's all my questions that I can think of right now. There are a couple residents that have questions. I'm going to start unmuting them. First, Joe Resinetti. I asked.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Joe.
Hey,
There you go.
I'll start it again. Hi, I am Joe Resinetti from 1006 York Way in West Deer. I just have a quick question about the timing of the projects, which I think someone else also typed in the chat. When the applicant first appeared last year, they had said that the Dionysus well pad was slated to begin construction in September 2021 and Leto in August 2022. And we were just wondering if those dates had changed and if you could tell us what the anticipated start of construction was on each pad.
Sure. So for the Dionysus pad, you know, our current plan is March 2022 for it. And then on the Leto pad, we're shooting for September 2023 for construction of those.
Okay, next question is from Rachel. I asked to unmute her, so she is free to unmute herself and speak freely.
That question was answered. Thank you.
Okay.
It was answered, she said.
Okay. And next is Mr. Resinetti. Let me find him on the screen and I will ask to unmute him. Perfect. I couldn't find you there. Yes, it will be virtual. That's up for Mr. Gavin to.
You call me Mr. Gavin, Bill?
I did. It's late.
Maybe if you hadn't asked 75 questions, you'd still be sharp. You'd still be sharp of mind.
Yeah.
Well, the way it will happen is there will be a public comment period. It will, there will be limited time for public comment, but I don't see any reason why, as long as the commissioners don't have an issue with it, that there couldn't be, visual aids used as part of that public comment process. So, keep in mind, it's not going to be a public hearing like there will be in front of the Board of Supervisors, but it will be, there will be a follow-up presentation, presumably from the Olympus team, and then an opportunity for the citizens to provide comments, and that can be in the form of visual aids as well, again, unless there's objections. So I think, I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, Mr. Estinetti, but it might be a good idea to coordinate with Mr. Payne beforehand, just for sort of ease of administration once we actually get to the meeting. So if you can have those materials to him in advance and then maybe try to figure out how you're gonna work that's probably in everyone's best interest. Mr. Payne, these have been treated as separate applications, right? And they're obviously separate properties, so I'm assuming separate votes has always been the plan.
I would, yep.
Okay, so the only thing I would say, Mr. Estinetti, is that to the extent that there's overlap, and the same comment is applicable to both for efficiency purposes, I think that would be handled that way. But certainly, if there's anything specific to one or the other, that could be treated as a separate, separate comment for consideration.
Yeah, I believe that, under our plan, there would be 2 motions with separate conditions for each one.
And I guess that maybe this is a good time to raise the question with, I guess, Mr. Lucas probably. Is the plan right now, I mean, I think we know, the commissioners know, the township knows that the current extension to commence the conditional use hearing expires at the end of June. Is it Olympus's intention then to proceed with the public hearing before the board on the 3rd Wednesday of June at their regular meeting?
We would hope so, certainly.
I mean, obviously, we can see where we are a month from now, and if there's enough outstanding issues, we can have that conversation again. We're not locked into future, excluding future extensions potentially, but just want to see what the current plan was.
Yeah, that's the current plan. Certainly, we're flexible depending on how things play out.
Okay, Mr. Tork had some questions. He's next, so he is now able to speak.
I just want to thank the board commissioners for allowing me to speak this evening. I have a quick comment, and I do believe I see a Brian somebody from Olympus. I don't want to butcher his last name, but I've looked at his response. He signed the letter. I think it was November of 2020. The responses from Olympus to a bunch of questions, and there was a 2.5-page questions on the evacuation plan. And I was quite disappointed and quite shocked to read, I believe it may have been 3 paragraphs in response to 2.5 pages of an evacuation plan questions that were submitted. I just wanted to say that I'm quite disappointed, really frustrated, and I thought it was appalling to have that response. I even took it down to Josh Wiggand, our chief of number 3 fire hall there, and he was quite disappointed too. But anyway, it was just that my quick comment. Thank you for letting me comment. And by the way, I'm Gary Torek from 1531 Palmer Way in West Deer. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Ms. Brissette, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Marcy. I'm Jack Rurick. I'm Marcy Brissette's partner, and we're sharing a computer. First of all, again, thank you to the Planning Commission here. I'm always impressed by how thorough you guys have been with a number of things I've seen over the last few months I've been attending the meetings. My questions are, first of all, I haven't heard a lot addressed yet about the safety and health concerns for the people living in the vicinities of these wells. You know, there are some concerns that have been very well documented and publicized. These wells are going in on one of the more populous areas of the township here, next to and in Bedford, and the housing plan on the other hill here. And I also, so I wanted to ask if there's any consideration about that. Also, I had a further question because we live up on Middle Road Extension, and I do have a further question about the traffic study from the standpoint that over in Indianola Township, which is just a couple miles from here, there was a well pad put in about a year or so ago. I heard from a person that I know well over there that they heard similar things before the pad went in about the traffic studies. But the truck traffic at night, because I would travel that way, I have a home in Plum too, was horrendous night after night for months. It was really very difficult. They would have the local police out directing traffic through that intersection by Emerling Park. And I'm just curious about that disparity between what the traffic studies say and what actually occurs on the ground. And I would be over driving through there, and there were, it wasn't like a truck or two every hour. It was like 30, 20 to 30 trucks in a row, bumper to bumper, practically going up and down 910. And that went on for quite a while. Can somebody speak to the actuality versus the theory of what happens with the truck traffic? Thank you.
We really can't speak to what happened on another well pad with another operator. Again, we have to base ours on, the data that's from Olympus's operations and where, what our truck routes are, what our water sourcing plans are. So we really can't speak to others. With respect to general health and safety, I think there have been a number of cases actually that so far have established that unconventional oil and gas development does not create any public safety risk with respect to air, for example, or the like. And in any event, those are all heavily regulated by DEP and aren't really within the domain of the township. It's not that Olympus isn't concerned about those, but it's really the responsibility of other regulatory authorities to deal with those issues.
So the question I should further ask, I wasn't clear on that. It isn't just not so much just health and safety, but also just the welfare of people in the vicinity of the pads. There will be a lot of lights and noise 24/7 during the operations of the drilling and until the operation's complete, which if I added the totals up works out to be about 14 months. Is that accurate? I mean, I've driven past these pads. It is 24/7 noise and lights all the time for 14 months, correct?
Annie, you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. So, if you look at, say, the 5-well Dionysus, activity there, construction activity is not 24/7 in almost all cases. Very rarely do you go 24/7 on a build. On the drilling, that one, of course, would be 24/7. And that's, in that approximate, 100 days that I mentioned there.
Well, you said 100 to 150, correct? So it could last as long as 5 months.
Yeah, correct. I'm just speaking specifically to Dionysus, and if I combine them all together, yes, 100 to 150 on the drilling there. And then, so that would have, activity around the clock. The completions phase also has activity, around the clock during hydraulic fracturing, and the drill out clean out phase also, which is in that 35 to 75 days that I mentioned earlier there. And then on the production side, those first 30 to 60 days there, a lot not quite it's 24/7, but not the activity that you see with the completions and the drilling phase there. So not the full 14 months that you
12 months
there. So
And one last question, and this may be answered in the questions we had submitted. I haven't seen the final responses. Are these plans that we've seen for the pads complete as far as, the wells that will be on the pads? The one thing I don't see is if there are future plans for pumping stations where permanent pipelines will be running. Will there be compressors that will be in place and running, after the pads are completed, and how noisy will those be? Because I know over towards, and I know it's not your operation, but I know over towards Indianola, they have some compressors, and we were on the phone with somebody and those things went off and you could hear it over the phone, and they said, this is this way all the time. And the pad's done, but they have a compressor station. Well, my question to summarize it is, do we have complete plans of what you plan to do for the next 5 to 10 years? Or are you going to come back and say, now we want to put in a compressor station and now we want to do this?
Well, we're just dealing with developments on the well pads. Any future, what I'll call midstream activities, to the extent there are ordinance requirements and processes that need to be gone through, Olympus would do that. But the narrow application before us is just the development in and around the pads themselves.
Okay, but are you saying there could be future requests for other things to supplement what's being put in after the pads are in?
Sure. I mean, but they're not part of the request now.
Okay, well, it's good to know if the possibility. Thank you. And I thank you for your time and letting me speak. And thank you.
Mr. Rurick, your other home, did you say it was in Plumboro?
Yes, yeah. I spend most of my time, I spend most of my time here now, but I actually have a home still in Plum.
Do you know who the gas development company was over in Plum?
No, but I could find out. I know there's a very controversial injection well being put in Plum for disposal of the waste that's being generated. But I don't know the name of the company. I know I could find out. Are you referring, first of all, let me ask, are you referring to the injection well, or are you referring to the well pads up on the top of Coxcomb Hill?
The well pads. Was that what?
I can
Well,
find
pad's
that
an
out.
Olympus pad.
Pardon me?
Oh, it is an Olympus pad.
Yeah.
That well pad is Olympus, is not the injection well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But that pad up there is Olympus. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I didn't know. I know there's a pipeline running down to the Allegheny River down there, some pipeline project that I just passed a sign for the other day. But I don't know if that's Olympus or not.
Were those trucks that you were talking about, was that from the well pad or the injection?
Which ones? The ones I spoke of?
Yeah, the ones that you spoke of.
I assume that was going to the well. Oh, that was going to the well pad. That was not, those trucks I was talking about weren't the ones in Plum. Those were the ones going to Indianola up over behind.
Oh, okay. So the Indianola one, I believe that's range. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying that was, what I was noticing about what it took. So it's a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
The pipeline project in Plum actually is a water withdrawal facility to service wells in that area. So again, it goes to Olympus's efforts to try to minimize truck traffic.
Okay, yeah, because I saw it, the sign said I couldn't believe it, pulling 1.4 million gallons of water out of the river a day. I actually took a photograph of the sign. I was like shocked.
Yeah. Well, that's good that they are utilizing, water pipelines instead of truck traffic.
Sure.
So we appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for the chance to comment, though.
Hi, I had a question. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is Laura Henderson. I live on 204 Locust Street, near the proposed Lato pad. I had a question about the traffic study. It's been obvious to me that the amount of traffic in the entire area has obviously decreased during the pandemic. And it's still, from what I'm noticing at several intersections, it's still not up to anywhere near what it used to be. even during key times. I was on Route 8 the other day during rush hour, and the traffic seemed to be decreased by about a quarter. I was just wondering, how are they able to account for that when they did the traffic study? How are they able to actually get an accurate estimate of what would be normal traffic should the economy pick back up again?
That is a good question. It was accounted for. PennDOT has released a guideline on how to handle traffic during the COVID when you're counting data. So when we had turning movement counts, which are where we count at each specific intersection, we also had tube counters on the road. The tube counters were located where PennDOT had previous counter locations. In a comparison of previous dates, not sure what the dates are, say 2016, 2018, whatever they were compared to what we counted, and a factor was determined and adjusted and applied to increase the volumes to get it back to what would be considered normal pre-pandemic conditions.
Can I ask about approximately where these sensors were, or these meters?
The daily counters, yeah, there was one count location on Route 910 just east of Lorry Road, and the other count location was on, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Oak Road between Dewey Lane and Dillner Lane.
Okay, so it's possible that you took like a snapshot from maybe 2016. It's possible that that particular day or whenever that study was, there could have been construction elsewhere, maybe on Route 8, which is not unlikely, right?
It would be a daily count. We counted for, I believe our counts were for at least a minimum of 3 days, maybe a maximum of 7. As to what occurred back during the counts when PennDOT had completed them, that's unknown.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
For the record, I'd just like to note that we probably had a couple hundred homes go in off of 910 since those PennDOT historical counts were done. If they were done in 2016, if they were done in 2018, we had a little bit less, but we've still had over 100 homes added.
Bill, is there anybody else?
I think that is it as far as resident response.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We will endeavor to see you all next month.
Yeah, we appreciate the dialogue and the input you provided, and there's a number of items I think we'll be providing more information on either at next month's meeting or if not before that. So again, thanks for your time.
I'd encourage you to get it in as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Bill, is there any other items you want to go over in tonight's meeting?
There was just one item I wanted to mention. Next month, there will be a, just today, me and Dorothy got a proposed cell tower conditional use application for Blue Row. Blue Row.
That's down in Russellton.
Down in Russellton behind the Family Dollar, up on top of that hill. What's that?
Who?
The
company?
Gem Sandblasting is the company that it's going on to. It's going to be an AT&T was the one pushing it. And then Verizon has also committed to going on it. They have a letter out to T-Mobile, but the T-Mobile has not responded back to them yet.
Okay. All right. Consider motion to adjourn.
I move.
Do we have a second?
Second, Patrick.
Anybody
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay. Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll see you next month, guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.